If you're like millions of other Americans, chances are you pay your cable company a monthly fee to rent your set-top box, that ugly piece of hardware that many of us use to scroll through channels, record programs, and look for new content. And if you're like a lot of consumers, you may think you're paying too much. Well, the Federal Communications Commission agrees with you. The nation's top cable regulator said in January that it'll be taking action to crack open the market for set-top boxes, letting anyone design their own. This would allow companies as diverse as Apple and Google to build alternatives to the box you rent for your cable company, possibly resulting in more competitive prices and more competitive choices. To hear more about the idea, we spoke with Tom Wheeler, the chairman of the FCC. Here's what he had to say.
Today, there is no competition in set-top boxes, and therefore the incentive to innovate and come up with all kinds of new alternatives is somewhat limited. 99% of the pay TV subscribers in America have no choice. They get one box from the same provider that they buy the service from. And that's a situation that inherently does not stimulate innovation and competition. So all we're saying is we want to obey the law that Congress wrote saying consumers must have choices and create the opportunity for those choices. And then what happens after that? That's for good old all-American competition to decide.
Now, in your sort of the fact sheet that you released along with your proposal, you gave some examples of what this could look like: better search functions, better menus. Help us understand, as a consumer, what would my experience look like, or how could my experience improve with these new rules?
Well, we are not designing what the next generation of products look like. That would be a terrible mistake. I can't tell you what anything is going to look like, but I do know that there is a very good track record that when you end a monopoly stranglehold on something and you allow competition to exist, that prices go down and innovation goes up.
So as we expect a lot more of these newer entrants entering the market, many of these companies have business models that rely on understanding how consumers behave on the internet, how they watch TV, how they surf the web. What plan do you have to address concerns that some folks may have about what these companies may now be able to collect on consumers' TV viewing habits?
Well, I think the first thing we have to bear in mind is that the cable companies are collecting information on you today, and they have a set of rules that they have to live by. There are rules for device manufacturers and service providers at both the federal and state level. And what we're going to do in our rulemaking is to say that you got to have the same kind of rules that cable companies have. Privacy is an important component of what we do going forward. There are existing privacy rules in place both at the federal and the state level, and one of the issues that we're raising in the item is specifically how do we make sure that the consumer's privacy is protected in an open device.
Now, the cable industry says that it is already moving in the right direction by supporting apps and other technologies. Why is that not enough in your mind to drive innovation?
The whole world is moving to apps. The question is whether the app is open or closed. And the way the cable industry works today is that is an entirely closed system. And what we're trying to say is that if you want to have somebody else's set-top box or app, you have the right to do that. And the cable operators today don't allow you to have that right. So it doesn't make any difference whether it's a piece of hardware or a piece of software. Congress has mandated that consumers should have choices. And for 20 years since that mandate, they haven't. So we're going to do something about that.
Tell me a little bit about your own TV setup at home. What does that look like? What shows do you watch? Have you ever thought about cutting the cord?
So, it's a great question, Brian. We have so many different controls at home, that the question is always, okay, now which control works which device here? And the reality is that the only reason you have all those different controls is because nobody has opened up the system to say cable needs to share with the smart TV and allow that to happen. And so if we can get down to one device that uses an open technology to allow consumers to have choice about what they see, choice about how it's displayed. But let's bear in mind, nothing changes the model of what's going on inside their cable subscription. Okay, that it's still the same price, it's still the same programs, it's still the same tiers, it's still the same bundles. You know, you may be taking Showtime and not HBO. Nothing changes on that. It's just that there is a competitive choice that makes it easier for you to get to that. That's all.
As a consumer, would you buy a third-party set-top box, or would you continue leasing from your cable company?
Well, today I have no choice. I'd love to have choice. I have choice in my cell phones. I have choice in my smart TVs. I have choice in my tablets. I have choice in my laptops. I have choice in everything except the device that the cable company says I must have in order that I can pay them for their service.
Chairman Wheeler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.